Hi, I'm Heather,
And I'm Morgan.
and we're going to talk to you today about time management. This is our first Talk About It Tuesday, and we're really excited to be on this topic with you. So, Morgan, I'm wondering what are some of the time management issues that you hear students tell you about?
Yeah, I think the biggest one, and a lot of this stems from the workshops that we hosted earlier in the fall semester, but a lot of students, especially our newer students, are having some issues with all of this newfound free time that they have. As I'm sure you guys know, college is a little bit less structured than high school in some aspects. And so with that, there can be this newfound free time, and it's difficult to find what works for you in scheduling that time out and making sure that you're using that time effectively and efficiently for academics and for professional development and all the things that you need to be doing to work towards your goals. So just kind of that free time and holding yourself accountable is something I hear, especially with our newer students.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I hear that as well. It's hard when you come from high school and everything was really programmed for you, and then you get to college and suddenly all the time is yours. You know, your professor doesn't come to your door and pull you out of bed and say, get to class. It's really up to you to do that. So I think that's one of the big things that I hear students talk about. I also hear them talk about that they don't have enough time. I'm sure you hear that too.
Absolutely, quite a bit.
Morgan, do you know how many hours you actually have in a day? Or
Yeah,
no, not in a day, in a week.
in a week. Yeah. So in a week, I just recently learned that in a week, every single person has 168 hours.
Yeah. So when you think about 168 hours, does that seem like too much, too little? I mean, can you?
So when I first heard that number, I was like, that's a lot of time because I mean, you think about it 24 and then it adds up, and all of a sudden you're at 168 and you're like, wow, I thought I had more time than I actually do. But as you start looking at what goes into those 168 hours, you take out the time that you need to sleep, the time that you need to eat, the time that you're in class, it dwindles pretty quickly. And then you're left with, just these handful of hours trying to figure out what to do with them. So in retrospect, it's actually a lot less when you factor in all of the necessities and things that you have to do during those hours.
That's right. Time's the one thing that we can't bank. You can't it's not like I can save 5 hours now and put them into next week. You can't do that. Like you're going to spend them every week, every day, all the hours are going to go and you're going to spend them somewhere. So what do you think is your biggest time management challenge?
I think so. Currently, I'm a grad student. So I did this in my undergrad, and it definitely carried over into this grad program. Is that I'm quite a bit of a procrastinator, and so I usually think, okay, I have 1 week to get an assignment done. I'll do a little bit on Monday and a little bit on Tuesday, and then if I absolutely have to finish it up on Wednesday, I will. And my plan is to have everything done by Wednesday. But I know the assignment's not due until Sunday. And so, Monday goes past and I think I can do it tomorrow. It's not a big deal. Tuesday goes past and I think, oh, I still have Wednesday. It's not a big deal. And before you know it, it's Sunday afternoon and I have this big project due.
And
And just
suddenly it's a big deal.
exactly. And I'm rushing through it and I'm trying to get it done and it's not my best work. And so I think that's my biggest issue with procrastination. And one thing that I just recently realized just this past semester is that I'm quite a bit of a perfectionist. And so I love for things to be perfect. I love to be able to submit my best work. So when I do budget my time out and I start that assignment on Monday, I always think to myself, oh, I could have written that sentence a little bit better, or I could have put, an extra thing on this graphic to just make it just a little bit better. And that starts to stress me out. And then I get into that stressful phase and I'm like, you know what, I'll just do it tomorrow when I'm a little bit less stressed. And then again, before you know it, it's Sunday and I'm this perfectionist who's not putting their best work forward because I am out of time. So that's definitely my biggest issue with time management. Heather, what do you think? What's yours?
So I think I'm a perfectionist too, but I especially when I was an undergrad, well even now, I tried to do too much in the time that I had and I didn't really give enough focus or attention on things that really mattered. Um, which is it's a hard thing to figure out, like where do your priorities lie? but I'm the kind of person where if I have 2 hours, I'm going to cram as much into that 2 hours as possible, because I don't know, I'm not a procrastinator. I don't know when I'm going to get the next opportunity to do it. So I just try to get as much done as possible. But then I end up not doing my best on the things that really matter, which really bugs me too. So I think you can come at it from both ways. And I think that there's a lot of students who do struggle with being a perfectionist and struggle with procrastination as well. So we're going to address some of those topics as we talk about our different scenarios. So those of you watching, we're going to go through 4 different scenarios for you of different time management ways that students handle things, and you can think about for yourself, is this something that I might want to try? Is this something that would work for me or it wouldn't work for me? Think about where those questions are for yourself. So I hope I'm going to click through here. And we're going to skip the expectations. All right, so here's example 1. Do you want to read it for us, Morgan?
Absolutely. So example 1, Claire understands that it's important to do long-term thinking. At the beginning of the semester, she reads her syllabus and takes note of important dates. She writes down all major tests, quizzes, and projects in her planner so she can look ahead when studying. She also writes down any other big commitments like student organization events and family events. This allows her to look ahead to busy weeks and spread out her homework assignments throughout the month. Heather, have you ever done anything like this?
Yes, this was me when I was a student. I loved my paper planner. I still have problems using like technology planners and things like that. I mean, I like the Google Calendar, but it doesn't allow me to get as specific as like, here's when these things are due. So this was definitely me when I was a student. How about you, Morgan?
So this was my goal, was to be this kind of student. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for me. So I actually put this graphic together, this picture together on the side from a planner from 2019 to 2020. And it's the perfect example because there was nothing written in this planner at all. So when I bought this planner, I was very excited. I thought, wow, I'm going to get my life together. I'm going to write everything down. I'm going to rely on this. And then it sat on my bookshelf for almost an entire year. So the planner didn't really work out for me. I found it difficult to keep track of it, where it was at all times. I tend to forget things a lot, and so I have to jot them down. And if my planner wasn't right next to me, I would put it on a sticky note and forget to transfer it to my planner. So this one didn't work out for me, but I do have another system of a planner that we can chat about here in a little bit that does work out better for me.
This kind of way to plan or think about how to use your time does work for some people. It's not going to work for everybody. If you're a person that likes to write things down, if it helps you to remember things, I had some friends who got really into color coding things, and I did one year try to buy like the big desk calendar and hang it on the wall, and I had things color coded on that. I think one of the big issues with this way of time management is that it's easy to get it started and it makes a lot of sense in the beginning, but it's hard to keep up with it. You know, if you, like you said, if you lose that planner or if it's not with you right when you need to write something down, then maybe you're writing it on a sheet of paper that you're going to lose, or sticky notes that, you know, how easily those fall off of things. So it's hard to keep it up if it's not part of your normal routine to have it with you. Especially like if you're not carrying a backpack around, carrying a planner around doesn't always make a lot of sense. So I can see why it could be an issue for some students. You know, again, easy to get it started, but to actually follow through and use it on a regular basis, I think is the hard part for students.
I do think it is helpful though, especially with this planner, when you have the entire month at a view, that it's easy to look and see, okay, I have a super busy week next week. So I know that within my 168 hours this week, I need to be strategic with my time and I need to plan to get things done. So I do have all of these events coming up next week, whether that be midterms, a couple big family events, getting ready for holiday breaks, that you know that you need to spread out your assignments. You need to spread things out so that you aren't crazy busy the weeks that have so much going on. So as a visual person, it definitely does help to be able to look at a month at a glance and see, when my busy times are so that I can try to spread things out. And then having, tangible goals written down there, being able to look and say, okay, I know that I want to get a 3.4 for my GPA. So I'm going to write that down. It's going to be there every single month. I'm going to look at it every single day and help me keep track of my goals. So that's another benefit of a paper planner, I think.
Yep. Awesome. Let's move on to example 2.
Fantastic.
Okay. Should I read this one?
Go ahead.
Last year, Jake had a hard time balancing his social life, job, and school. He recently implemented a strategy to help him balance his commitments. Jake works on Tuesday and Thursday nights, so he uses the afternoon time between class and work to study and get assignments done. He tries not to schedule anything on Wednesday nights because it is his time to catch up on homework. Jake works hard to have everything done before Friday afternoon so he can use the weekend to spend time with friends and family. All right, what do you think about this one, Morgan?
This one's a little bit more my style. First of all, because they're using the Google Calendar, we can get into that in a little bit. But being able to have a consistent schedule is something that I really rely on week to week. I know during my undergrad, I would always make sure that my jobs would schedule me consistently every single week so that I didn't have the random Monday night shifts, or if I was in a student organization, I would try to limit my activities to just 1 or 2 nights a week, because I know that if things are consistent week to week, I'll fall into kind of a routine and I'll be able to hold myself a little bit more accountable in that way. I also am a very social person. And so I always have to bank on that time of spending time with my friends and family. So being able to say, weekends are not my time for homework unless I have a big project coming up, really helped me during my undergrad and still helps me today. Now, it's inevitable. Sometimes you will have to spend a Sunday afternoon working on a project, and that's totally fine. But being able to schedule that time out was a big thing for me. And then also kind of going into the Google Calendar, we talked about how paper planners can be a little bit difficult if you don't constantly have that on you. But I think the consistent for me is that I always have my phone on me no matter what. And so it's very easy for me to pull out my phone and put an appointment in my Google Calendar, or say, I know that I have 3 hours this afternoon. I have to block out that time for homework or for a test or something like that. So Google Calendar is something I rely on very heavily. And now that I'm in grad school, it's something that I think people should at least give a shot.
I mean, Google Calendar is great because everybody at UNI has access to that. You don't have to have anything special as part of your email account. So I would really encourage students to use Google Calendar if you're not already. It also makes it really easy when you schedule appointments, like our office sends appointment reminders and puts it on your calendar. So if you're not using the calendar, you're still getting an email, hopefully, that says, hey, you have this appointment coming up. So I really wish that more students would use their Google Calendar. But if not Google Calendar, there's so many other apps out there, so many other calendar apps or ways to track your time that could be just as useful. And like you said, you keep your phone with you all the time. Most other students probably do too. So use your resources, think about what do you have access to on a regular basis that you're going to have with you. If it's not a paper planner, then the phone is a great option. What I really like about this student situation is that they are deliberately putting in time for studying between classes. And I think that's something that students don't think about enough of. When I was a student, I felt like I always had friends who were saying, oh man, I have, like an hour, I'm going to go take a nap, or I have an hour, I'm going to go play that video game or whatever. And it's like, you would have more time to sleep or to play the video game if you would just use that hour to get something productive done. And then later that night, instead of having to study or feeling really tired, you could, work, do something you really wanted to do instead. So I think it's really good when students put in intentional time to study. And like you said, get into the routine of that. A lot about managing your time, students, is just coming up with a routine and getting yourself into that. If you have to constantly every day think about, oh my goodness, what's today going to look like? It's really hard to do that every single day, to build in time that's different every single day. So if you know that your Tuesdays and Thursdays or your Monday, Wednesday, Fridays have certain times in it where you could be studying, use that time. Maybe it'll take less off your plate than when you're on the weekends. Something to think about. Something else that kind of caught my attention here as we're talking about it is one thing that might be difficult about this is you still have to be adaptable to
Mhm.
things. So even though you're planning in time when you think you're going to get things done, we know that circumstances can change. Sometimes things come up. So you do have to kind of be flexible sometimes. You know, you may not be able to get into a routine on every day, or something might happen where your routine has to change, and that's okay. Hopefully you've done enough work ahead of time that when those things happen you can catch back up.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I've come to realize when using my Google Calendar is that it's there as a guide. It's not there as like a strict, you have to do this at this time. Because, like you said, sometimes you have to be flexible. Sometimes things come up. Like, I know a lot of times, like a group project will pop up during a time when I'm supposed to be studying. And so I have to go in and I do manually change my calendar at those times just so that I can hold myself accountable and be able to go back the next week and say, okay, where did I spend my 168 hours? But Google Calendar is nice because you can, in the moment flip things around, but the flexibility is key there.
Yeah. Should we move on to the next one?
Sure.
Take it away. You understand this one way better than I do, so you go for it.
Yes, this one's one of my favorites. So we'll go through it and explain how it all works. So the example is Jordan has a hard time understanding priorities. They recently took on an exec position within their student organization, which is taking up a lot more time than they expected. Jordan knows it's important to focus on school too, so they've recently developed a strategy to balance the two commitments. Jordan uses the urgent versus importance priority schedule to identify tasks each week that fall into each category. Jordan then focuses on the urgent and important box first, followed by the urgent but not important tasks. Finally, they do the important but not urgent tasks, and if they still have time, do a few not important and not urgent tasks. They have helped Jordan do the essential task for both school and student organizations first, and then focus on those with less importance. So in that example, there were a ton of words like important and urgent. And I know that that can get a little bit confusing if you haven't seen this matrix before. So I will just walk through it. This is a tool that has really helped me figure out my priorities and things that I absolutely have to do that are time sensitive versus things that are still important to do, but maybe not as time sensitive. So if you see this matrix here, the first quadrant up in the upper left-hand corner says important and urgent. So these are things that absolutely need to get done in a certain amount of time and are super important to helping you reach your specific goals. So Jordan put in this box that he has homework due tomorrow. And so Jordan has to get that homework done today. So that's both important because it's part of their grade and urgent because it's due tomorrow. Jordan also has a test tomorrow. So it's important that they study for that test today. Again, it's important because it goes into the grade, and it's also urgent because the test is tomorrow. It's not something that Jordan can put off at a later date. The test is tomorrow, so it has to be done. If we move into the important but not urgent quadrant, which would be in the upper right-hand corner, these are tasks that are important to helping Jordan reach their goals, but maybe not as time sensitive. So setting a GPA goal for this semester, this is important because you need to know kind of what your goals are for this semester so that you can hold yourself accountable with that. But does it have to be done this very moment? No. Again, similar to begin midterm study guides. Midterms are coming up maybe in 3 to 4 weeks. So it's important you have to do good on your midterms, but it's not as urgent because you do have a little bit of time there. Moving into the bottom left-hand quadrant, it means not important, but it's still urgent. So these are things that maybe you can delegate to other people, things that, are time sensitive, but maybe are not important to you, but maybe important to somebody else. So in Jordan's situation, finishing emails for a student org committee, maybe there's somebody else on their exec team that can work on this, as well as creating a flyer for an upcoming event. Maybe this could be delegated to somebody else. Finally, the last quadrant, not important and not urgent. These are the tasks that I actually end up spending a lot of time on. And so that's why I have to use this matrix so that I hold myself accountable in that regard. But these are things like responding to the text from my mom asking if I'm coming home for the weekend, or watching the latest episode of Gossip Girl or something on Netflix that really isn't important. I could, do these in a month. It really wouldn't matter. And these are the things that you would probably want to do last on your list if you had time for. So it's a large quadrant or a large matrix. I know it can kind of be confusing. If you want to talk more about it, I'm happy to set up a meeting with you and kind of go over how you can put your time matrix together, but this is something that I've used a lot because it helps me understand the tasks that I need to do in the order of importance and urgency that they have to get done. Heather, has this ever worked for you?
I hate this one. Students, I think it's okay to be honest. So not all of these strategies are going to work for every single student, and they don't all work for me. This is one for me that I find it tedious to have to go in and put different things in different boxes. I think I do it probably mentally in my head, but the thought of like having to sit down and actually write it all out, I'd rather just start doing the work. So for me, this isn't one that I personally like, but I know that it does work for a lot of other people. I've seen people do this same kind of strategy when it comes to like sorting things out for like things in your house, like what's the really priority things that I need to keep, what are the things that maybe I don't really need to keep, and they go through this same kind of process. So yeah, just not for me. That's okay.
One big time that I use this is when I have a really big project coming up and it has several components. So I know I recently just wrote a pretty big assessment paper, and with that, there were different pieces of the paper that needed to be done. And so I actually wrote out one of these for the different components of the paper to see which ones are the most important. So which ones are going to be graded most heavily. And then also, which ones do I need to budget a little bit of extra time for versus the things like, adding page numbers or creating a title page. Those aren't as urgent and they're not as important because those aren't going to be graded as heavily. So this isn't just a time management tool. This is something that I use in all aspects of my life, kind of like what Heather was saying. There's a lot of flexibility with using this. If you just want to write down on a sticky note, this is important and this is urgent. This is what I have to get done today. And you don't have to fill out all the boxes all the time. But for me, it's a nice visual to see what I need to get done and on what timeline.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you have a different application for it too, that it helps you not only with your time, but also helped you with a paper. I think that's awesome. I mean, thinking through projects that you have in this kind of way, I mean, could help you really focus on where do I need to put most of the attention. For me, sometimes I would get so caught up on like that title page, like you were talking about. Maybe this would have been more helpful because I would have seen like, hey, they're not going to spend much time on the title page, so you shouldn't either. So good. Should we move on to number 4?
Absolutely. Here we go.
All right. Number 4. Mary is a first-year student new to time management. She's taking 15 credits, working a part-time job, and is in 2 student organizations. She knows a lot of her classmates use Google Calendar, but she's unsure how it works. A lot of her classes are online, and she found she is easily distracted with social media and watching her favorite show on Netflix when she should have been active in class. She missed a couple of assignments last semester because she forgot they were due and didn't do well on a test that she did not have time to study for. Mary is looking for time management help. All right, Morgan, lots to unpack here. What do you want to suggest to Mary first?
Absolutely. There's so much to this. And I think this is where a lot of our students are starting, especially our second semester freshmen or newer students on campus that are excited that very first semester about being in college. And then, reality kind of hits and they're like, I am just doing too much and I don't know how to squeeze it all in and I don't know how to manage my time. And so that second semester rolls around and they're really excited to, figure out a plan and figure out what works for them. So hopefully a couple of you watching this video are in this situation right now and we can kind of help you through it. I think the first thing to realize is the things that Mary's involved in and what maybe Mary could step back from or what Mary could do to better prioritize what she's doing. So Mary's taking 15 credits. That's pretty average for our students. She's working a part-time job, which a lot of times, you can't get around, and she's in 2 student organizations. So the first thing to do is what I typically would do is to take 168 hours and figure out where I'm spending those 168 hours in terms of these different things. I know that I'm in class for 15 hours a week, but where am I spending my study time? Am I only spending 3 hours a week studying or am I spending 15 hours a week studying? Because as you can see, Mary missed a couple of assignments and she didn't do well on the test. And maybe the reason for that is that she didn't spend enough time studying or didn't dedicate enough of her 168 hours to school, but maybe spent too much time in her student organization. And I can attest to this because this was me.
Now, Morgan, You bring up an interesting point here. How many hours are you supposed to spend studying for each hour of class that you're in?
So I've heard two different answers, and Heather, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have heard 2 hours per credit or 3 hours per credit.
Yeah, so let's just say it's two, just to make the math simple. So if
Yep.
you're in 15 credit hours, you technically should be studying for 30 hours in your week, right? So, and
Absolutely.
I've heard some anywhere between 2 to 3 hours as well. So students, when you're thinking about that, that means that of those 168 hours, 30 of those hours need to be spent doing something towards studying. That doesn't mean you're taking all 30 hours in one, like you're not spending 2 full days of studying consecutively, but you need to give yourself the 30 hours within the week to study. That also doesn't mean that all of your classes are going to be needing the same amount of time to study. I mean, I certainly had some 3 credit hour courses that did not need 6 hours of studying every week. But I had others that were 3 credit hour courses that probably need 10 hours of studying every week. So you have to learn how to balance, but in general, you need to make sure that you're at least getting 2 hours for every credit somewhere in your week that you're taking.
Absolutely.
Keep
I think
going.
it's also important to know that, weeks are going to be flexible. So maybe this week you have to spend 10 hours in your cornerstone class, but that means maybe next week you only have to spend 2. It just kind of depends on what the workload looks like that week. And that's why it's so important to be flexible in what your week looks like and how you dedicate your time so that, you can really dedicate what you need to for the things that are going on that week. So, in terms of Mary, I don't know. She has a lot of different things going on. The first thing that I would probably suggest to Mary is that she did bring up Google Calendar. She was unsure how it works. This was me. I didn't know how it worked. But I had quite a few people say, hey, I threw an appointment on your Google Calendar. So just don't forget that it's there. And before you knew it, I was starting to use it, every single day. So maybe showing Mary how Google Calendar works and how it can work to her benefit would be a big thing, especially if she's thinking about, well, I can put my part-time job on there and I can put the meetings for my organizations on there. And then it's a visual for Mary to say, okay, here's where I do have time to study. Here's where I have time to get all of my other things done. The other thing that I would strongly suggest to Mary is to decrease her distractions when she's in class and when she's supposed to be doing other things. So just like Mary, I am on my laptop all day, doing classwork, things like that. I have my phone with me. But those are huge distractions. I know I will throw on Netflix in the background, and then before you know it, I'm staring at the TV screen instead. So telling Mary that, you really do need to put your phone on the other side of the room or put it in a different room, turn it on silent. The other thing that's worked well for me is that I log out of all of my social media apps on my laptop before I start studying or in class, because that's a lot of work to try to remember my password. And so I just end up not logging in and focusing on what I need to do. So finding a system, whether it's Google Calendar, a paper planner, something like that, and then reducing those distractions are probably the first things that I would suggest to Mary. But of course, there's so many different ones, and it's a lot of fluidity just trying to find out what works best.
So Morgan, you talked about logging out of your social media accounts. Did you know that you can go to the library and check out a laptop from the library for like 3 hours at a time? And those usually don't have all of the distraction, the social media stuff loaded onto it. So that would be a really easy way to just be able to concentrate on work and not have to have all of that stuff going on. Then you can save your information, turn the laptop back in. You've done about 3 hours worth of work and didn't have as much of the distraction. So something that you students can try if you're interested. The other thing that I think you have to do is be honest with your friends, with your family, with whomever might be vying for your attention at the time. That, hey, I have something I need to work on for class. I have a huge reading assignment or a paper I need to work on, a project, a group thing, whatever it is. Just be honest with them and let them know that you need to spend your time doing that. It's always good if you give them, like, hey, I'm going to be busy this morning, but maybe in the afternoon we can hang out or something. So it doesn't have to be. I think one of the myths that students have is like, if I'm going to study, I have to study all day. There's no breaks, nothing. And that sounds terrible. Nobody wants to do it that way. In fact, you're not going to learn very much if you're thinking that all you're going to do is spend your entire day studying. You really should be breaking things up as you go. And, so studying for an hour, one subject, give yourself a break, and then maybe start studying on a different subject so that you give yourself time to kind of, get away from what you were on, think about something else, and then go back and review. When we talk about study strategies later on, that's one of the things that I really love to tell students about is, hey, you don't have to be studying for 24 hours straight. It's not, that doesn't work for anybody. By the same token, you shouldn't be trying to write papers in, 5 hours and thinking it's going to be your best work ever, because it probably won't be. You need to give yourself time to think about the topic, set it aside, and go back to it. So
definitely had to train my thinking, because I used to think studying was a production or an event. So I would have 3 chapters to read for humanities. So I would sit down and try to read all 3 chapters for humanities. And what I've come to find is that studying needs to be as natural as picking up your phone and scrolling through Facebook or Twitter. If you have 20 minutes to scroll through social media, you have 20 minutes to read, a part of a chapter in a textbook. So just switching your thinking and looking a little bit more on like the academic side will definitely help too.
That's true. It is totally a switch up of how we would normally think about it, Yeah. If you have, like you just said, if you have 20 minutes to scroll through social media, or if you have 20 minutes to spend watching a TV show, you probably have 20 minutes that you could have read at least a couple paragraphs, or taken notes over something or reviewed something. So yeah, good. I guess the last thing that I would say about Mary's situation, and like we've kind of been saying this whole time, is just she's going to have to try out some things and see how they work. And it might be that some of the things that she tries don't work very well for her, but it might be that they work great. But if she doesn't try them, she's never going to know. So
exactly.
So Morgan, here's a couple other strategies, and we've kind of mentioned some of them already, but like for instance, the breaking up your assignments into smaller, more manageable pieces. This is one of my favorites. I do this all the time. I do it with like every aspect of my life. I'm always thinking about, okay, there's no way I can get this whole task done right now, but how much of it can I get done with the amount of time that I have? And then where else throughout my week can I continue to work on it? That makes everything a lot less daunting, and it helps you figure out, okay, where is a place to start? Because I think sometimes when we're talking about procrastination, that's another part of it, is if the assignment seems so big you don't even know where to start with it, you're going to keep telling yourself, well, tomorrow I'll figure out where to start. Well, tomorrow I'll figure out where to start. Then tomorrow comes and you haven't done anything, and now you're rushing to try and get everything done. If you would just dive in, pick somewhere, dive in, see what you can get done in, a set amount of time, set it aside, pick it back up later, you'd be much better off than trying to finish it like 20 minutes before it's due. So
absolutely. I think another one is reducing distractions, kind of like we talked about, just putting your phone on the other side of the room, checking out a laptop if you can, telling your friends and family, hey, I have to focus for this little bit of time, because all of those are distractions, and they may be things that are a little bit more attractive than sitting and reading a textbook or working on a project. But you also have to remember that you're in college to get a degree and to work on that academic piece. So just try to reduce your distractions, and they're going to be there when you're done with your assignment, I promise.
I always tell my students that, nothing so monumental is going to happen in the 2 hours that you might say, I'm not going to do anything on social media or whatever, that you can't get caught back up when those 2 hours are done, say if the world ends, guess what? The world ends. Nobody's going to know anything at that point. So, it's really just putting it in perspective and being realistic about, what, my friend might have a huge emergency that comes up, but in those 2 hours, you're going to be able to help the friend out later. You don't have to give up the study time in order to do that. So yeah. Keep yourself healthy. Love that one, because I think that this is one of the things that students let go really quickly. They don't give themselves enough time to sleep. Sleep is so important, students. Sleep is how your brain is recharging. if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not running on your full cylinder when you're trying to take a test, when you're trying to write a paper, when you're trying to do the reading. You need your sleep. I mean, studies show this. That's why there's so many commercials and so many products that are advertised to try and help people get enough sleep. 8 hours, you need to get 8 hours. Actually, for most young people, you need more than 8 hours, but at least try to get the 8 hours in. Do not give up on your sleep. But that also means that you're not trying to sleep when you're supposed to be doing your other things. That's what nighttime is for. Sleep at night, not during the day when you should be in class or at work, or, if you're having a hard time figuring out a sleep pattern, a healthy sleep pattern for yourself, there are definitely people you can talk to here on campus who can help you get into a better sleep pattern. But it's really, really important. Another part of keeping yourself healthy is eating right. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm a nutritionist, because I'm certainly not, but just getting a good balanced diet, not eating all the junk food all the time. I understand that's okay. Truly, the freshman 15, I definitely gained it when I was a freshman. And it was because I was going down and grabbing Krispy Kreme donuts every single morning while I was doing my reading. And I was never headed to the WRC ever. That 15 pounds packed on, it was probably closer to 30 by the time all was said and done. So, and I felt terrible. I felt terrible about myself. I had less motivation to go out and do things because I was just like, I don't feel like I look good or look healthy or anything like that. And it starts to affect other things too. I wasn't sleeping right because I wasn't, healthy eating and things like that. So I can't say enough about being good to yourself, which means getting enough sleep and eating healthy and
Absolutely.
exercising.
Yeah. And I think it also goes with your mental health as well. College is so stressful, and it's a different type of stress for everyone. You may have academic stress, you may have the physical stress of, not being able to go to the gym as often as you like, or, putting on the weight or something like that. But, everyone has their own mental health challenges. And it's just really important when you are feeling that to reflect on maybe some of the things that are causing that, and also reaching out if you need it. There's so many resources on campus, especially the Wellness Center, that can help you with your mental health. If you're not 100%, you're not going to be able to focus as well as on your assignments. You're not going to be able to sit, for 2 hours and read. Your mind's going to go elsewhere. And so I can't emphasize it enough. It's something I've struggled with in the past. And it's something that, I had to take some time and figure out where it was coming from in order to address it. But please, please, please work on keeping your mental health up as well.
Yeah. Ooh, I love the next one. Reward yourself.
Yes, I love this.
I think students forget this. We as people just forget this. If you work really hard at something, you should reward yourself. Now, the reward that you choose, needs to be within appropriateness. But, if you spend your hour, your 2 hours studying and you feel really good about what you did, then you deserve to reward yourself. Like I used to reward myself with ice cream. It was, it was great. It was a study break. It was something I didn't have to think very much about. Some people, if you really like watching movies on Netflix or whatever, then give yourself the 2 hours to do that. If you spent 2 hours studying, that's awesome. But only do it if you actually complete the task that you gave yourself to do. Don't be rewarding yourself for not completing things or only getting halfway done. Rewarding comes once you've completed what you set out to do.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people have this misconception that rewards have to be something big and they have to be tangible. So like, if I study and I do really well on this paper, I'm going to go out and treat myself to a nice dinner or something. But rewards can be something as simple as, hey, I am going to go take a 15-minute walk because I got my 2 hours of studying done, or I get to hang out with my friends tonight because I did really well on a test and now we don't have anything super big in this class for a while. So remember that they can be intangible things, and they can be something as simple as, just giving yourself a little bit of a break. They don't have to be these big things that you have to invest a lot of time or money in.
Yeah. When I was in admissions and I would have to do these long nights of calling students, and my favorite thing to do was after I would spend like 3 or 4 hours calling students at night, and I'd come home and all I'd want to do is take a bubble bath. It was so awesome. I would just sit and relax the whole rest of the night because I got all the calling done. And, so think of what the reward is before you set out to do your task, because that's what's going to keep you going. If you know that you have that thing waiting for you at the end, it's motivation to push through and get it done. Your mind can handle a lot more if it knows it's got a way out, or if it knows it's got something good that's going to happen at the end of it. If it doesn't, your mind's going to get real tired real fast, and you're not going to have much motivation to complete. So
yeah. The next one, I love this one. Be specific, realistic, and intentional. I know that those words may seem like they're the same thing, but they're all a little bit different in that, when you're working on time management, it's important to be specific. Don't just say, I'm going to, spend 2 hours today studying. Be specific about what you're planning on studying or what you plan on getting done, and make sure you follow through with that. So, I can say I'm going to spend 15 minutes reading 3 paragraphs for this class. I'm going to spend an hour making an outline for my paper on this class. And then I'm going to spend the last hour, reading the rest of this paragraph for this class. And with that, be realistic. Don't sit down and say, I'm going to knock out a 10-page paper in 2 hours, because that's not realistic. And you're going to let yourself down, and you're going to feel kind of crappy about that. And then odds are your motivation's going to be down, and then you're not going to want to do anything for the rest of the day. So set realistic goals for yourself, but also be intentional. I am the type of person where I like to get all of the really easy things done first, because then I can check them off my list and I'm like, I got so much done today. But that wasn't being intentional, because those things really didn't need to be done in the first place. So when you're working on your time management, just be specific, be realistic, and be intentional.
Yeah. The set boundaries, communicate with priorities. We talked about this a little bit already with the distractions, but I think sometimes, especially when you're new to college and you're trying to make friends, it's hard to set boundaries that mean something. But you should not be afraid to tell people, even if you've just started the friendship with them or whatever, that, hey, this is important and I need to get this done. They should be setting boundaries with you too. College is a great time for social life, but it's also where you need to learn things, and you need to learn how you work. You need to learn how you operate, what works, what doesn't work. Setting those boundaries is part of that. And it sounds cheesy. I think we probably heard on some after school specials or something, but if you've got friends who don't accept your boundaries, maybe consider if they're the right choice of friend. I mean, we all have those people in our lives who it's like probably not going to them if it's something really important or big. And then we have the other people who it's like, these are my go-to people no matter what. So, think about who those people are. Who are you letting into your inner circle? Who are the ones that you can really trust and who are going to be honest with you? Those are the people you want to keep in your life. Those ones who are like not going to respect you or your boundaries, again, think about if those are people that you really want in your inner circle. It's fine to have acquaintances. They don't all need to be best friends. So
I'm going to put a little plug in for another Talk About It Tuesday we have coming up in a few weeks. We're going to be talking about, creating your network, especially during the times of COVID. So be on the lookout for that, because that may help you identify some different people that you can go to for different things, and kind of how to create that inner circle too.
Yeah. This last one, create a plan B, C, and D. This is totally me, because as a mother of 3, I constantly have backup plans for everything, because I just know that things never go the way that I'm going to plan them to go. And I'm going a little overboard when I say B, C, and D. Really, I'm just talking about have a backup plan for yourself when it comes to studying, when it comes to what you're planning to do with your time, things that you think you're going to get done, because life happens all the time. So know how you want to handle things if something does happen. That also means don't procrastinate if you can help it, because you don't always get to the plan B or the plan C. Sometimes things happen where you're not going to get extra time later on. And because you procrastinated, now maybe you aren't even getting to turn in the assignment, because your time that you thought you were going to have later is suddenly gone. So, just think about how you want to handle things if it doesn't go according to plan A. Is there anything else you want to share about that, Morgan?
No, I think, we talked a little bit about, for me, I always put the plan B, C, and D in place, and then I always end up procrastinating and end up with plan D. But it's important to remember that, tomorrow's never promised. And so you may think that that could work, but just really be intentional about where you're spending your time. And if you have the opportunity to do it now, make sure that you're taking advantage of that, because I think we all saw just within this past semester, in January, I thought that I would have time to work on my finals as we get closer, but then everything shifted online and we had a new normal, and things didn't go according to my plan, and I didn't have the time that I thought I was going to. So just be intentional about your backup plans and making sure that you're using them, only if necessary.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, oh, sorry. I was just going to say, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I just want to remind everyone that there's no one right way. You have to be fluid. You have to try things out, and it may work for you this semester and it may not work for you next semester, or something that you've tried in the past and you're like, that's not really for me. It may be for you now. So just keep a couple of these in your toolbox, in your back pocket. Pull them out when you think it's necessary to try something new, but there's no one right way for anyone. And it's just about kind of trial and error and figuring out what works out best for you.
And just because you feel like you didn't have a great way of managing time, or that you didn't manage your time well in the fall, doesn't mean that you can't come back in the spring and do it better. It doesn't mean from day to day that you can't get better at doing it. There are some days I totally stink at time management, and it's like I look at myself and I'm thinking, what were you thinking that day? And then there are other days where I'm like, I completely rocked this. I could write the book on this. So it's going to fluctuate every day. Every class is going to be different. Just because you feel like you didn't do it well one day does not mean that you can't do it well the next day. Every day is a brand new day and a chance to do things better than what you did them the day before. So please remember that. And it doesn't just go for time management. It goes for how you study. It goes for how you're doing in classes, what you're doing at your work, if you're working, hanging out with friends, all of that. Every day is a new chance to try something different or to do something better than what you were doing before. So
absolutely. That's a great life philosophy to live by. So
woohoo!
As we're wrapping up here, we have a couple more things, but I really want to encourage you to think about, what is one thing that I plan on doing this next semester? What's one strategy that I heard today that, I kind of resonated a little bit with, that I'm just going to try out maybe for a week? And you never know if it's going to stick or if you're going to have to pull out another one from your toolbox. But please, please, please do some reflecting after this video and think about ones that you can try out for yourself. We do have a couple of resources. I'll let Heather go ahead and go through those.
If you want to talk to us about anything that we talked about time management today, or you have your own time management questions that you want to ask, these are our email addresses. You can contact Heather there, or Morgan. You can also contact our peer advisors. They would love to talk to you about time management too. If you want us to sit down with you and just actually come up with your time management plan, we can do that. We do that with a lot of other students as well. So, and talk with your friends and your classmates. Ask them what works for them. See if there's something they're doing that you want to try. Because we're not the sole owners of this information, or, we're not even the experts on this information. We're just telling you things that we've observed and done and heard and lived and, throughout our experience. So feel free to reach out to others and ask them what they're doing too.
For sure. Just a quick plug. So if you're watching this, you may not be on the exact same schedule as the Talk About It Tuesdays are coming out, but we will always record these videos for you. So our next one in this series is about adapting your learning style. So everyone has a little bit of their own unique learning style, and it's important to understand that so that you can use that in different classes and different teaching styles so that you can mesh well with the material and learn it in the best way possible. So be on the lookout for that video, or feel free to join us if it's not before December 15th. It will be at noon. Anything else to add, Heather?
No, Morgan, I want to thank you for leading this discussion with me today. Excited to do it with you on the 15th. And everyone have a great day.
Absolutely. Thanks, Heather, and thanks everyone for watching.